Hi everyone, welcome to Songwriter Live. This week we are going to be looking at collaborative songwriting. So what we decided to do as a challenge to ourselves was to write a song collaboratively but remotely. So Nicola took on production, EJ looked at melody, and I wrote the lyrics. So we're going to start by listening to the track.
Further and further apart. You don't understand that your words, they hurt my heart. Is this what you planned? Break away, break my heart. I can't stay, break my heart. Break away, break my heart. I can't stay, break my heart.
So we want to kind of talk about how writing that track worked, the things that we found difficult, and the things that we kind of would definitely take away and maybe do again. So maybe if we start with Nicola, who worked on the production.
Yeah, cool. So first things first, I just opened the track in Logic, and at the start I was kind of like just experimenting with sounds and just kind of think I didn't really know exactly where I wanted to go just yet, so I thought I'd just start off with some chords, get some just the harmony down, and then I thought, actually, you know what, no, I need a bit of a direction here. So I kind of listened to Victoria's and EJ's kind of music, and I thought about what kind of stuff that I've written as well. Maybe I kind of wanted to stray away from my own music a little bit and just kind of think outside the box a little bit and maybe do something like this track, because my own music isn't really exactly like this. So I thought myself down as well. So I put the chords down, and the little that melody at the top, just put that on, kind of sing it first, and then all I did was I went onto this what's it called? It's like a website, I think, a subscription called Spice, and I found a drum beat and I just literally dragged that in and made sure it was the right time and everything, and just kind of let that go over the top of it. Didn't really do anything else for a while, kind of just listened to it, thought, right, how can I build up this track, how can I make it sound a little bit thicker and like there's more going on. So I did that, and then what I decided to do to layer it and make it sound a bit thicker was get separate tracks and add a kick drum, add a snare, and then I had another track which was, let me just try and find it now. So there is, so it was kind of, there's another MIDI file, and I played another kind of beat on top of it. So kind of, you can't really tell that much. It's kind of low in the chorus, but again, it just adds a bit of a thicker thing. Then I added a sub bass, which is you can hear in the verse and in the chorus. Again, that was pretty much it. It was quite simple. I did some other parts. Well, actually, no, I added another, I think it was some sort of synth to mirror the that part. And then I added another synth pad underneath to kind of just make the chords sound a bit thicker in the chorus. So as it stands, in the intro, which is 4 bars, it's just the chords and the main melodic part. And in the verse, we've got basically all the parts. We've got bass, the kick, the snare, the drum loop, keys, and the melodic synth part. And for the pre-chorus, I brought it right down. So I just had the drum loop. I didn't layer up with the kick and snare. No bass, at least for half of the pre-chorus away. And then I added in the kick again, and then everything came back in for the chorus. So I kind of gradually wanted to have a little bit of, movement, a little bit of momentum in the verse, and then slow it down for the pre-chorus to kind of add a bit of tension and build it up right back into the chorus again. So, and also that differentiates, distinguishes between, what section is what. So that's pretty much just quite simple in the end. But something I should have said at the start was with every Logic project I work on, I like to map out my intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus at the top. So literally, so I know I've got a structure to work with, and I find that kind of works a lot better than just kind of being like, oh yeah, I'll just maybe do the intro for like, I don't know, this amount of bars, and then maybe the verse will have, that amount of bars. I like to be quite organised with it. So I think it was quite simple to do. I didn't really face that many challenges. I think once it came, it just started flowing. So it was fine after that.
What's one of the challenges that you did face?
So I was just kind of at the beginning, I just started experimenting with it, and I thought, right, I needed to actually have an idea of what I was going to do. So that's when I went and listened to some more music, listened to your music, and I thought, right, I look at my own music and think, you know what, I do want to set myself a challenge and do something a little bit different to what I would normally do, because my stuff at the moment is kind of more poppy and a little bit, the track I'm working on, especially right now, is kind of like pop house, funk, disco kind of thing. And this is a kind of, say more, I don't know what I'd call it, maybe pop, a little bit of R&B maybe, or it's a little bit soulful, especially with the lyrics and the melody. But and I think, another thing actually that was a bit of a challenge was actually sticking to time. Because like I said at the beginning, I was experimenting with it, and I kind of just did want to just go with the flow, and I thought, no, I'm going to run out of time. And he's just structure it, organised, and that was it.
Yeah, and I think that's sorry, I should have mentioned that. We did try and work to kind of an hour time frame, so that we were really giving ourselves a challenge kind of similar to what we'd expect, I guess, from maybe some of our students in a session. So it was quite interesting to try and work in that way. So EJ, once you obviously got the track, then you had to come up with a melody. How did you kind of start off trying to find your melody?
Yeah, so I started off with obviously listening to the track and kind of playing it quite a few times, and then gradually each time I was playing it, some like notes started coming into my head, and I start by humming, and then I think I split it up into sections. So I started just repeating the verse and kind of humming along to that, or going like ba da 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 da, and then I kind of had an idea what I wanted the verse to be, and then I did the same with the pre-chorus and then chorus, and then I used just on my phone, I recorded myself singing those notes for each section, and then how it sounded all together, to make sure that each section sounds a little bit different and the chorus actually sounds like a chorus, and I knew that I wanted the chorus to be kind of a bit bigger, and like for the notes to be kind of on similar, but also like intonation to be different and everything. So it was kind of it was quite fun, and I like coming up with melodies. I kind of do it anyway when I'm listening to like backing tracks or instrumentals, or even just when I'm walking to the bus stop. So it was nice. Did
you find any challenges not writing the kind of chords yourself, or were you quite happy to top line something?
No, I don't think I minded that. I guess like the more time you spend on it, you do then want to go to the next step and kind of see what it would be like if you were to add lyrics or vocals. But at the same time, it's kind of fun to see what the next person's going to do with what you've got. So I didn't have that many. I didn't really have a challenge with this particular top lining.
It's a bit like stacking cups, isn't it? And like the next person adds the next little bit. So I've never really had a melody given to me and then I've just written the lyrics. So I found that a bit of a challenge. What I found difficult was sometimes coming up with my lyrics and then trying to get them to fit with the melody that I'd already been given. So that was interesting, and that was a little bit tricky at times. And I did make a couple of amendments to EJ's melody, just trying to make sure that everything kind of could fit together. But the way I kind of started was I had listened to the track a couple of times and tried to get a feel for the kind of emotion that I guess I thought Nicola was trying to portray or to give me in the track. And it kind of had that slightly kind of morose, kind of like wistful kind of, you know what I mean? Kind of, I felt a slight sadness there.
It was a bit of a moody one.
Yeah, it was a bit moody. So that was kind of where I took it with the lyrics. And yeah, I just kind of, when I write lyrics, I tend to just write and then see what happens. And that was kind of what I did. I think that, as I said, the hardest part for me was just making sure that it was all kind of fitting in. And also, I guess it's also when you're given a structure, it's obviously, you don't have that freedom just to write however you feel. You are having to make sure that you stick to that. This is the verse, this is the chorus, this is the chorus, which was absolutely fine. And again, it's good. It's a good discipline to get into, I think, as a songwriter, to be able to do that. But it does obviously put a little bit of a restraint on your, on your kind of creativity in a way. But yeah, I just I went down the kind of relationship road, I guess, and maybe one that isn't quite working. And then I liked the idea of kind of trying to break away from that. And yeah, I think it was the little kind of riff that you'd used, Nicola, that kind of was really playing in my head, and that was something that I kept thinking about when it got to the chorus. And I liked the idea of the repetition and the repetition in the words as well. I feel like for a chorus, that when you have a little bit of repetition, it makes it a bit easier for the listener to sing along to, and it becomes a bit more catchy. So that was kind of what I tried to do with that. Yeah. So
just a question. Oh no, so just a question with that riff. How did you find singing over it, like in the verses? Was it a little bit, distracting? Because what I try to do a little bit is have it quite prominent for the sections where there's not that many, lyrics or whatever. There's a bit more space. How did you feel with that?
I was okay with it for this track, but I will say in the past I've quite often said to producers, can you just mute, this synth line or whatever, so I can write the melody and then add it back in at the end. So that's definitely, I think, I guess a tip for anyone who's working collaboratively. If you do find that there's something in the instrumentation that you're finding a bit distracting or difficult, I think it's okay to say, can we just mute that for the moment, or turn it down a bit? I think the more you do it, the more you get used to I kind of hone in on the chords and the and kind of where it's going sonically, and I try not to listen to like what I call the bells and whistles and all the stuff that's making it pretty. But I think that's definitely a skill, and it's something that some people just naturally just have it, don't they? But I think for me, it was something that I've really had to work on, where I've had to just hone in on the chord structure and where it's going. But yeah, I was okay with this one, but in the past, it's definitely been something that has been a challenge to me.
It's quite difficult, especially because at the moment, so when I normally write with guitar, very odd time, but I'm not a pianist, but recently I've just been kind of improving my production skills, and it is quite difficult when you're building up a track. You get all these melody ideas, all these different parts that you can add, and then when it actually comes to top line over it, it's just like, well, actually, there's too many things going on there that clashes with that, and it's kind of, you've got to be careful that you're not writing like a piece of library music or just an instrumental piece, because then it can clash with the melody, and vice versa. You've got to make sure that if you're trying to write a song, an actual song with the top line and everything, you don't want it to end up sounding like just backing track. So it's kind
Absolutely. My conversation with my producer is always, we always say you need to like leave space for the melody, leave space for the vocal. So it's even in thinking about instruments or synths that are in a similar, the tonality is similar, so they're in the same kind of range, that kind of thing. It's all of those things that you suddenly have to think about, and there's nothing wrong with taking things out and then kind of putting them back in and see where they fit. But what I thought was interesting with this little project that we decided to do was that obviously we're all singers, we're all songwriters. So Nicola, how did it feel? I don't know if you've ever written a track for someone to write over before, but did you hear a melody in your head as you were writing it, and how did that compare to kind of what EJ then delivered to you?
Well, the last time I did this for another person was part of an assignment at uni, but the person already had the song written, so it was just like you just produce over that. So this is the first time I've kind of done it like this, I guess. If I had longer, then I'd probably look a little bit, more into your own music and try and really make it as if, I am just a producer. I'm not going to have any involvement I didn't have any involvement in the melody lyrics anyway, but I'd really try and make it sound like you two are featuring with each other on a track instead of, thinking of our own challenges or whatever, however I want to, do it to match my own music, if that makes sense. But yeah, I kind of had a little bit of an idea for melody just because, obviously I write my own songs and I stay on top of my songs, so it just automatically comes into the head and I start singing something. So I think in terms of the melodies were slightly different to how I would do it. I can't remember exactly how, but the only thing that was kind of similar was the range of the melody. There wasn't anything that was higher than what I would sing it or lower. It was kind of within the same range. So that was interesting to hear. I thought, okay, yeah, no, that works. It might have been a little bit different to what I did it. I had done, sorry, but I like that because it's, it sounds quite familiar to what I would do, if that makes sense.
And
Cool.
the same for you, EJ. What about, obviously, because you did the melody and then to have lyrics over your melody, which are probably different from what, from how maybe you would approach a song. How did you feel about that? How did that feel listening back?
Yeah, it was quite, I didn't have any things like, oh, I wouldn't have done that, or don't like how you've done that. Yeah, and I guess because you're going into it knowing that, it's collaboration and it's not only your song, it kind of makes it easier. Whereas if I'd started thinking that it was going to be just mine and then someone did the lyrics, then that would feel completely different. So I think it is a lot about, how you approach it and what your mindset is. But yeah, I enjoyed the process.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to work. Like you were saying, it's weird. It almost didn't feel. Previously, we've talked about kind of writing in your own voice, and kind of strangely with this, it didn't feel like it was my voice, if that makes sense. It didn't feel like it felt like a song I'd maybe write for someone else, which is interesting. I don't know if that's just because I wasn't so involved in, coming up with the chord progression or with the melody. How did you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I kind of thought, after listening to it, I like it and I think the melodies are really great and the lyrics, and it's just like, this isn't something I think I'd do for myself. And I think because, like you said, if you're not kind of thinking about it for your own project exactly, then it's kind of hard to get attached to it in a way. Although you shouldn't get too attached to your music too much or too often, because you should be open to like feedback and stuff like that. And but yeah, I just sometimes you will write a song and you just you won't do anything with it. You just be like, okay, that's one for the the backlog, back catalog, whatever it's called. And yeah.
So what do you think we would do next with it? Like, Nicola, did you have kind of a vision where the second verse and the following sections would go, because you were kind of in that production stage, or did you not really think about that?
I think the second verse, the issue that I'm finding with it now is I think it does sound like it's a little bit empty, the production. Like there could be more parts in there somehow. I always look at like production videos, and I look at, for example, Jacob Collier, I think I say so, and how he produces, and like you see there's like hundreds and hundreds of tracks. I think he did a YouTube video recently, or maybe a couple of months ago, and I was like, you obviously can't hear every single one of those parts. They're quite low in the mix, but obviously if you were to take them out, you would notice it. So I'm still yet to learn exactly how to kind of, master production, obviously, but get all those bits to make a difference and not just layer up a part, instrument, just to find these little interesting characteristics and stuff like that. Actually, there we go. There's a video I watched of Calvin Harris creating and producing Slide, and he broke it down. Obviously, played the track as he was, building the layers up, and I thought that was pretty cool. But I guess for the second verse, it probably won't be too dissimilar to the first. Maybe, I don't know, would I keep the drums in there as in full? Would I maybe add another rhythmic part, maybe a different pad?
I think
Just to make it a little bit more interesting.
Upbeat. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And maybe expand the range a little bit, because at the moment it is kind of very much within one range, which isn't a problem. But I think at the moment it could probably use something else, because it can sound like it's a little bit flat. If that makes sense.
Maybe like a middle eight or a bridge to take it somewhere else, I think could be really nice. I think for me, lyrically, I kind of just wanted to get the lyrics done as a bit of a challenge, but I feel like they could be better. We talked before about there's a couple of cliches and there's a couple of things that that maybe could be said a little bit better. And I think it's always good to have that challenge to go back and revisit lyrics and really kind of hone in on them and make them. I don't think they're the best they can be, is what I'm going to say about those.
I feel like if we weren't working remotely, and obviously in the situation that we are, if we were all in a room, I feel like obviously lyrics, we probably would have all been involved in every part some way. Like for example, lyrics and melody, we might have a chat about something random beforehand and it might, spark some ideas and we end up writing about that, or we kind of all talk about what we're feeling about writing or what ideas we've brought to the table. And I feel, we'd have some sort of contribution, I guess. But obviously, you might go into a session, you might go into a studio session or, a writer session, and someone will have the lyrics and they'll just do that. So it depends. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it was a good little challenge there, and I think it's it definitely shows what's possible. What we're able to do while we can't all meet up and be together, and I think that was a really positive. How about the way that we didn't interact that much with each other between the sending on, but now kind of sat here and evaluating, because this is the first time we've really spoken about the track together. So say, for someone who's never done this before, what would you say is the kind of etiquette for that kind of feedback and that kind of discussion that we've just had?
So I'd say, I think maintain more contact between doing bits, and as you're doing, certain sections, like for example, I think actually, no, before I continue that point, if you are facing challenges, maybe message each other and just be like, oh, what do you think about this? Or how about this? And you can also work it doesn't always have to be the three of us, for example. Maybe I could just work with EJ on the melody to make sure it goes well with the track, and then I'll kind of work with her for a little bit, and then maybe I'll work with Victoria and the lyrics, and then, maybe you guys work together as well. So I think just maintaining contact, asking each other for your, feedback constantly, especially if you're stuck. And I think just, like I said, updating each other as you go along.
I think I did ask you actually, like if you had a name for the track, because I find I don't know if any of you find this, but I find when I'm writing lyrics, especially if it's for, if I'm top lining, if I have a name or there's some kind of like written stimulus, I find that really useful. I think sometimes it can be nice if, and this goes for anyone when you're writing I can't say the word, collaboratively. It can be really useful, even if you just have, even if the producer just gives you a word about how they were feeling when they wrote it, for example. Or the same with whoever's done the melody. If they give you, what was I thinking about when this melody came to me, whatever it is. I think sometimes when you're writing lyrics, just even a single word can really help. In everything along. Okay, amazing. So I just wanted us to go through now a couple of tips that we have for collaboration. So tip number one that we have is go in with an open mind. EJ, did you want to expand on what this means?
Yeah, sure. So sometimes you might have already spoken to the producer or co-writer about what you're going to kind of write about, or what your kind of group vision is, or if it's like your song but they're helping you on it. There's lots of different approaches, but any way that you're going to work, you still want to kind of go in with an open mind. Otherwise, if you are restricted in what you're thinking about the track or how you want to write it, you might not be able to get to where you really want the track to go, or what other people could contribute to it. So I think it is important to be open-minded with it, and to let people give their different contributions, even if it is like your track, just because then you're going to get lots of different influences, and it will make you think about it in a different way. It will make you even stretch your mind, and think about like even different instruments or a different way of singing, or notes used, or melody styles that you might not have thought about before.
Absolutely. And I think to carry on from that as well, I think sometimes I think we said this when we were discussing last week and thinking about the track, you've got nothing to lose from trying something. And I think that's really, really important, is that we just go in, and even if you're not 100% sure. So there's a track that I have called Kendrick, and it's one of my most popular songs, and I wrote it at piano, and it was kind of like this slow down tempo kind of jazzy track, inspired by Kendrick Lamar. And on the way back from a show in Iceland, Max was sat on his laptop, and he produced this really weird, glitchy kind of electronic house beat over the top of it and sped it up a bit. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I like it. Like, it's not the original song. And I'm so glad that we ended up releasing both versions, and both of them have done really, really well for different reasons. And I think if I'd kind of been closed and just said, no, I don't want that, it's not working for me, then we would have missed out on, this amazing song that then kind of morphed into something that I would never have, I never would have taken it. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, really important. Amazing. Nicola, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that's pretty much covered it, really. It's like you said, the idea that could have been can make your song a hit. If it's just shut down and you just don't take it on, you lose out on a hit. For example.
Our second tip was to have some ideas ready beforehand. Nicola, how would you prepare?
So I think that is really, really, really key, really important, because I've been in a session where even myself and the other co-writers just kind of like, so what do you want to write about? And it's just like, there's nothing worse and nothing, less productive than doing that. Sometimes it can work. You can just have a conversation, and, you just really, you're enjoying that conversation. Like I said before, ideas come off it. But it is always to be prepared and have at least maybe a verse ready, or at least a topic, and a topic that you want to write about, and clear understanding and clear idea of what you want that song to be about, and what the purpose is, what it's for, if it's for you, if it's for them. Just be clear and be able to communicate that really well. Like I said, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to have the whole song written out, because obviously you're going to do that with your co-writer, but at least maybe a verse and a chorus, or ideas for a verse and a chorus, because they are kind of the main section. You can always decide later on if you want a bridge or a middle eight, and if you want to take it somewhere else in those sections. So yeah, it's just, you have some ideas ready, because otherwise it gets awkward.
I think as well, I think you have to know how you are as a writer. So I know that for me, I find it really easy to come up with melodies on the spot, but I don't feel comfortable writing lyrics with people until, we're friends and I know them and everything else, and it's like I still need to get over. So I know for myself that if I'm going into a session with someone that I don't know, I know that I need, even if the melodies aren't perfect, I know that I need to have a lot of kind of lyrical ideas there already, because that's kind of where I struggle. So I think being aware of your strengths and your weaknesses is an important one.
Definitely.
EJ, anything to add?
No, you said it all.
So our third point is to try not to take things personally.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, and I think this one can be hard as well, because especially if you haven't collaborated much before, or even if you haven't shared much of your music with other people, at least when you're with them and they're listening to your stuff. But I think the main thing to remember is that obviously you do have talent and you are there for a reason, and you know that you want to make music, and you have different skills, and that's how you've got to the stage you're at. So yeah, I think just to remember that yeah, who you are and what you have to bring, and hopefully that person is going to say it in a respectful way. And hopefully you've kind of got gauged what that person's like, and everyone should be respectful when sharing lyrics, especially because, like Victoria said, it can be hard, and you might be sharing things that are quite personal. So yeah, you want to make sure that that person isn't just saying no, like, to your actual feelings, you know, and to kind of remember that you're putting something into a song and your feelings or your kind of experience, but that doesn't mean that like they're attacking that. It's just the lyrics and how it comes across and how people are going to relate to it. So yeah.
And how it works on music. It might be a great lyric for something else, and also, like, I feel like if you don't, we get really scared sometimes to share, and I think as soon as we start being closed to people's ideas, then it just stops the flow. So I think that's really important. Nicola, did you have anything to add?
No, not really. I think you guys covered it all. That's all good.
So our next point is ask open questions and discuss the direction of the song.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just jump on that quickly. So, asking open questions is really beneficial because, you know, you can get more ideas for the song out in that way. Whereas if it's just like, oh yeah, do you think we should do, you know, add that melody for that song, that part of the thing? Yeah, okay, cool. Or what kind of melody should we add? Should it be, you know, should we take the melody up a bit? Should we keep it down? If you're specific as well, then that can really just drive it forward, especially if you get to a point where, let's say, you've been working on it for a whole day and, you know, maybe you're starting to get a bit tired and, you know, ideas are slowing down. If you ask open questions, that can kind of bring it back up a little bit. And what was the second part of the question? Oh yeah, and discuss the direction of the song.
Yeah.
Again, if you are starting to come to a point where maybe you're running out of ideas a little bit, or you're just kind of losing focus or the purpose of the song, I think discussing it and just being like, okay, what about if we try the middle eight, take it in a completely different direction, you know, maybe say you're writing about a happy love song. Oh no, so actually no, let's go with something else. Write about a breakup, and then you take it, so the whole verse is just saying, oh, you did this, and then in the middle eight you could be like, oh, but what happens if it's like something a bit different? Or you might decide, you know, let's do an instrumental. It doesn't have to have lyrics. I think if you're being open to different possibilities of where the song could go, you know, you might get a result that is amazing, and, you know, it might be your best song. And also, I think it just shows your co-writer as well that, you know, you're kind of happy to move things along, and you know, you're thinking of ideas and you're also contributing something, which will make them feel better too, and vice versa. You know, if they're contributing a lot and they're really, you know, going for it, then it makes you feel better, makes you feel like, oh, this is going well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they were all really good points. So our next one, number 5, was to build a rapport with the person, connect and chat about who you are, your musical influences, what you like, and then you both know about each other's backgrounds. I'm going to just start on this one. I think what I always try and do, and I didn't always used to do this, because sometimes with studio sessions you're in such a rush and, you know, it's so quick and you want to get things done. But I try and make sure that I always, you know, like, we'll stop and have a cup of coffee or whatever, or some juice or whatever with someone first, and just have a bit of a chat so that you feel comfortable. Because like we were saying, it's really, songwriting is a really vulnerable thing to do, and you are, you know, you're writing from your heart and you're sharing things that can sometimes be really difficult to talk about. You're also sharing, you know, if you're singing your instrument or if you're playing, all of those things where it's all about kind of confidence and feeling comfortable with people. So spending that 5-10 minutes can actually save a couple of hours, you know, of you being uncomfortable together in a room. So I think for me, that's really, really important, is just having a couple of minutes that's not musical, that's just a kind of, let's get to know each other a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, like, with that, and if you kind of get on or kind of laugh, then you feel more, like you say, more comfortable in sharing certain things. Or you might have written a song that you're taking to them and not kind of, yeah, you might not want to explain the story because it might be like difficult to talk about. But if you've kind of built that rapport with each other, you might feel more comfortable to share that. And then they're going to understand you more and your message of the song. And then it just kind of, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nicola?
No, I think like what you first said, you know, having a cup of tea with someone, having a little bit of a chat, getting everything comfortable at first is kind of the good way to go about it, because, you know, your co-writer might feel, you know, really nervous or a bit like, oh, or they might not, you might be the more experienced one in that case, or not, you might both be going into it new. So I think just kind of making it a comfortable environment first is quite important, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, our next one was, don't be afraid to park an idea and move on to something else, or even realising the person isn't the right match for you. So I guess this was kind of about when to know when something isn't really working and when we need to maybe either move on from the writing relationship or maybe from the idea.
Yeah, I think, you know, kind of straight away if you're writing with someone who isn't maybe someone that you work with again, or you'll just know if it's the vibe is a bit off. I remember one time at uni, I think we were doing one of our writing workshops, I think we just paired up with people randomly. So I was with someone that I wouldn't normally work with, just because our music, I couldn't see at the time if there was a link or a way to bring our music together. And we sat there in the co-write, and I was just like, I think we both kind of felt it was a bit awkward and that it wasn't really going anywhere, and we took ages and ages and ages to get an idea. And it was just like, at that point I should have been like, you know what, maybe the initial, you know what, I don't think this is probably the best we can come up with right now. Maybe we should take a break and see how we feel about it, or come back another day, see if we can have another go at it. If not, then we'll just leave it there. And yeah, I think making sure you got to say that in a way that isn't going to offend the other person, of course. Just be calm. I think if you're just honest about it and you're nice about it, you can't go wrong, really.
And I think that's the whole thing with just music in general, is I think you can't be too sensitive about things. And I think just, you know, it's like any kind of working relationship. Some people just bring out the best of you, and that's just how it is. And sometimes there's no rhyme or reason for that. You might have completely different styles or backgrounds or whatever, but when you kind of come together, it's just really magical. And I think it's good just to be aware that just because someone's your best friend, it doesn't mean they're going to be your best writing partner. I think that's definitely a good one. And then I guess as well, just like you're saying, just knowing when to say, actually, like, you're a great musician, but maybe we just don't work very well together. Just knowing when to move on, I think that's also okay.
Okay. Also, sorry. Also, not to feel like too bad about that, because you might feel like, oh no, I failed at the first kind of collaboration, or you might, kind of internalize it. But to remember that it's like with anything, you're not always going to meet people that you can get on really well with, or you can gel with, or you are on the same page. So yeah, just not to feel bad about that, and know that there's so many other people you can reach out to.
Absolutely. So then number 7, we had ask for them to send you the track so that you can review it and see what you think, and then also book in another session, because I know that sometimes as musicians we're not always the best at finishing things and putting things in the diary and meeting back up together. So EJ, you were talking about this, about how you like to hear a track, you know, quickly after it's done rather than weeks and weeks later.
So a really nice thing for if you're the writer or the singer, or, well, I guess even anyone, just for the producer to send you that track as soon as possible. Because if I drive to a studio, I like to kind of play it in my car over and over and over again, just to kind of you want to kind of settle into what the song feels like, and maybe if you're singing, kind of how your voice was, what you could do differently. If the person sends the track, I don't know, a day before the next session, you don't have that time to properly digest it. So maybe just at the end to say, oh, please could you send it to me as soon as possible. And sometimes I make a joke about how I like to listen to it in the car over and over again, and then they'll actually send it to me.
I'm the same. I call it my new favourite, and literally I will play it to death. But then, like you said, I'll know as soon as I get into the studio, I'll say, okay, well, it's like that bar and it's that one note that's like out of tune, or that one lyric. So I think it's really important, to be really meticulous and to listen and enjoy, but then also just to listen and be really like, is every single note perfect? Is every lyric the way I want it to be? And, or how we want it to be when I guess you're writing together and all of that kind of stuff. I think, really important.
I think just want to add to that, I think another point that's really important as well is to not listen to it too much. Because obviously you want to, at all times, especially with us singers, we can be very picky and very like judgmental on our own singing and our own, our pitch and our intonation, everything. So I think having a point where you just shut off from it, you listen to it enough to kind of know what you want to do for the next session, or you know where you want to take it or improve on something. But I think after that, stop listening. A, because you can get fed up with it, and B, you can just kind of overthink it, and when you next come to actually work on the track, it might not flow as naturally as you want it to. For example, something that links to this is that whenever I've recorded a cover or something, I can put it on, or recorded a video, or even vocals, if I start to get frustrated, maybe if I haven't practiced it enough and I've gone straight into it, if I start to get frustrated and I just keep messing up takes and messing it up, I know that whatever is coming out isn't going to be as good as it should be. So I think if you just chill and just relax and just take a step back from it, even listening to it, it can just, I think, be a lot better, a bit smoother.
Do either of you find that a track sounds different a couple of days after you've written it? Because I've had this. I sometimes in the studio, I think sometimes after 12 hours of kind of delirium and being in one room, I think something is amazing. And sometimes it's not amazing after I've had a couple of days to live with it, or it is something that's amazing after you maybe weren't so sure about it in the studio. Does anyone ever find that?
I think it's if you are kind of sick of your song just a couple of days after, I think maybe it's not the right song, or it's not really doing the best. Because if you think, I think we talked about this in the last Songwriter Live, but if you're going to be kind of playing that song loads or performing it or recording it in different ways, like you need to really like that song. And I think if the first week of that song is going to tell you a lot, I think. Yeah,
that's true.
So just to move on from this, I think there are all some really good tips. But we talked briefly when we were discussing our collaborative track. Obviously, when we sell it to the majors and we make loads of money, we need to talk about splits. So, we did kind of talk briefly about splits in songwriting. There is no, there's kind of like an industry standard, but there's no right or wrong way, and lots of bands work really differently. Generally, it will be a third for the lyrics, a third for the melody, and then a third for kind of the chord progression or the backing track. This obviously, it's quite flexible and it does change. So usually when you're top lining a song, it will be split 50-50, even if you've written the melody and the lyrics. But then you have bands like Coldplay, and Chris Martin splits everything with all of them. It's kind of all split equally, and that it kind of can depend on your working relationship. So if you've got a long-standing working relationship with someone, so in my duo, for example, we, regardless of if I've written the song and then, on the piano with melody and vocals or whatever, and then it's produced, we split everything 50-50, because that's, for us, is what makes a good working relationship. And that's why we've been working together for 10 years. But it is really important that you have these discussions if it's something you're planning on releasing prior to writing, which can sometimes sound or feel like it's being a bit a bit intense, and you might think that it will kill the vibe, but I think it's even worse. And I've had friends who've had these problems where they've written these amazing songs, but then they can't agree on the splits post-production, post-writing, and that can be really sad, because then a song gets parked and lost and kind of left. Nicola or EJ, do you have anything to add on this?
Yeah, I think, well, for example, just an example of a famous example, sorry. the Beatles, I know that at one point their manager took, I think, 25% of everything they did, and then the remaining 75% they all split between them. So, you know, it can happen that way, or that, you know, they can just, you know, one of them will write a song and then the rest of them will get it as well. Just because, like you said about the working relationship, and if you're friends or have been working together for a long time, you might just choose to do that because, you know what, they're your mate and you want to do that. But for example, with me, I've had, let's say two examples I've got from my own experience. I wrote a song with one of my friends from uni. He made the track and he had the chords down and everything, and I kind of pretty much top lined it and then we worked on the lyrics together and stuff like that. But we agreed a 50-50 split just because we really liked what both like each other put into the session. So you know what, let's just make it nice and easy, 50-50 split, done. And then there was another time where I wrote most of the song. It's a song that's been through so many redrafts and rewrites, and actually it'll probably be rewritten again. But I went to another friend at uni, and I was like, so I've got most of this track, but I know that what the song was about, I know that other person's been through the same thing. So I was like, put your spin on it, add some, you know, I think maybe a verse was needed as well, a second verse, something like that. And I think we agreed on like a 60-40 or 70-30 split. So I got the majority of it just because I had most of it done. So I think at the same time where you're obviously being nice, and if it's to your friends and you've had a long working relationship and you're happy to do the 50-50 split, cool, or split it, you know, evenly amongst all of you. You've also got to make sure that if you are doing a lot of the work, maybe in a separate situation with maybe someone you've written a few times with, but you're not that close to, and same with them, you've got to make sure that you are getting credited for something that you've done, hard work that you have been, you know, you've put in. So I think you've got to be aware of both. And obviously when you're communicating that, you've got to make sure that you're obviously saying in a nice way. You don't want to sound like, yeah, I want all this, I want all the money, I want all the credits and blah, blah, blah. So you've got to be quite professional about it, but you've got to know at the same time your own strengths and what you do.
Absolutely. And then, you know, but I think that's the thing, sometimes even when you're in a close relationship with sometimes that can be harder, because if you're doing the majority of the work and you feel like you should have a bigger share, then that's definitely, there's nothing wrong with having that conversation. It's all so individual. I just think it's really important just to be really open and to just talk about things, and to do a bit of research as well, and kind of find out for yourself what you think is right and what's wrong, because there's so much information on the music business on the internet, and lots of amazing books that you can get. PRS is an amazing website, and musicians unions and things like that. But yeah, I think it's just about being, like you're saying, Nicola, being really open from the beginning. And if someone is your good friend, then they'll be happy to have those kind of conversations with you as well. And I think that you shouldn't be afraid to have that chat. EJ, anything to add?
No, not for me.
No. Okay, amazing. I think we've covered everything today. It's been a really, really good session. I really enjoyed talking about this topic, and I look forward to seeing you guys for the next live.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. See ya.